Okay, so here we are again. Hi, BJ.
Good morning, Steve.
How's how are things up in Wisconsin these days? You've been having fun, I'm sure.
Beautiful. This is the time to be in this state. It's gorgeous out. It's 60 degrees in the morning, 80 degrees during the day, and my wife has, beside her teaching job, she has a little side kick at a local resort,
Oh, nice.
and the resort is filled to capacity. It's right on the lake, kind of got a pool sort of place, and it's near our downtown district. And we invite all of our friends from Chicago
Nice.
to, yeah, to Friday. There were two weddings Friday, two weddings Saturday, and everybody was just raving about how beautiful the weather is. And
That's
they
great.
can't find any shopping in Sheboygan. Like, well, you're from Chicago. Why would you come here to shop?
Yeah, that would not be where I that would not be on my priority list.
Yeah, that's not a thing. So yeah, that's everything that she's been up to. We've probably been up to other stuff though.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I told my wife I'm like I'm going to be gone most of this week.
Yeah, yeah. Camp. It's camp season.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So what? Tell me about the camp that you're running. You have a new job and you're running camp for a new school. So what? How did you make your first impressions with this place? I mean, this is really the first activity that you're going to have with them. So what did they learn about you? What did you show them first?
I had queued up all these pictures, and I forgot to queue up add one of the pictures I put up. The first day I put up on the white, we have these little whiteboards hooked onto the wall. So it's a rented facility, and I wrote mistakes. I think I told you this story, but maybe not. I wrote mistakes up there. I spelled it Misteaks, and then then I asked one of the kids to go take a look at it, and I don't think he realized it was misspelled. So there's my first
Mm.
learning. But he said it says mistakes. I'm like, yep, you're right. And I made mistakes. I always do. So I had I made a mistake. We had the last day we had the high schoolers match, and it was 26-25, and the point went to tie it, and I went the other way. I was actually the kids were keeping score. They had it right. I had it. I'm like, oh, no, coach, it's tied. So it was funny because the team that dominated most of the game lost. The other team came from behind and won 28-26, which is kind of,
Oh,
you like to orchestrate it that way to give them a little taste of what competition is about. But, I said mistakes, fun, and learn. And that's what I was looking for from them. We talked a little bit
yeah,
about
cool.
that. And that's kind of what we did. We had to set up the gym a little more creatively. And I'm not huge on a lot of drill stuff. I had a couple parents come in and I said, "Look, I can make it look really pretty, but it's not a pretty game." And
Yeah.
they need to learn all the unpretty stuff. So we're gonna just let them go. And we had everything from 6 through 12, brand new players who I tried to teach the torque serve. I did get about two or three kids who would use the torque serve. I was hoping for more, especially the young kids. And we let them serve from wherever they needed to serve to get it in. But kids made progress for sure.
That's good. Yeah, that's really a neat thing. I had a good mistake this week. Normally, we spend very little time uh, with with me standing and talking. It's get this started, and then I'll sort of, rather than bringing the whole group in and explaining once, I'll walk around and start a court, and then start another court, and we kind of just get going that way. And it's always revolving and rotating so they can keep playing. And I had the whole group together, and I we have one of my two drills. We played mostly games, but I have two drills that are, I think, about as game like as you can be. And I said to him, "All right, we're going to do a beach drill, and we're going to do it opposite side today. We're hitting on the right side. Let's go." And everybody walks out to their courts, and they have no idea what to do. They're all standing there like, "What are we doing?" And I realized that we'd been playing this drill every day, but I had never called it the beach drill. That's what it was in our gym, but I just hadn't used that terminology. So, as Kessel says, words have little meaning sometimes. So, like,
Yeah.
okay, remember this drill that we were doing? We're doing it this way, and now we're going to do it the other way. Like, oh, okay, now we get it. It was.
Yeah. Well, I found one of the things that I enjoyed about it was I've been working very hard to cut back on instruction. And once you start realizing that when you kind of give them a game and you let them go, it's going to be ugly at first, and then they start figuring it out. And I had a couple, with I had to sit down with a couple or take a couple of kids aside and say, look, these were mostly the older kids who would go off and do what they wanted to do. And I'm like, look, I've asked you to do this for a little bit. And I know you can do something else, but if we're playing twos and you want to play threes, we'll play threes later, play twos. I asked one group to play 1v2 because we had an odd number, and oh, it's not working. Like, okay, well, that's kind of on you. Go figure it out. Go make it work. And that's just growing pains. They're trying to they're going to get to know me a little bit. And I wanted to establish a little bit of control or a little bit of discipline or listening. But as I reflected on it after the fact, I thought, that might have been too much even. So it's, everybody's got their own style, and I need to figure that out.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting to work with a group. The group I worked with this week was at a high school that I I had worked with some of the players. They had two very, very good players that were a couple years older than all of these kids that I had had on a club team for a bunch of years. So they knew of me, but I had never worked with any of these kids. So it was interesting, because I think they were I think they were expecting some sort of magic, you know, and I didn't give them the line. There, you know, there is no magic. You're the magic. I probably should have brought that up, but I think by the end of the week, they maybe appreciated what we were working on.
Yeah.
Uh, just learning that it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of reps and a lot of work and figuring out things on your own, kind of.
Well, one of the things you realize pretty quickly is with the way we set things up and think about it, we do get a lot of reps for the time spent. And, in my case, I only had one court available. We're working on that. But right now, I've got one court available. And so that wasn't going to work. And having the young kid, it was interesting. I did very little segregating the kids. I just said, find kids at about your level and play with them, and they did it all on their own. I had one or two that I had to shepherd around a little bit, but there's always a kid who's needs a little more TLC or whatever, and that's fine. That's kind of the nature of the beast. But it was kind of fun.
We split up kids. A lot of the same. I ran two camps, um, one after the other. I don't love spending all day, so we had one camp, a 2 hour session every day, and then another camp, a 2 hour session every day, and an hour in the middle to eat and do video and discussions, workshops, kind of stuff. So we
Yeah, my
split
time
up.
was a My time was a lot
Go
later than that. Our AD, God love him, because he's just getting started, and there's so many things he doesn't know. I had my coaches meeting at my other high school because and I'm not in season, but they bring everybody together in the summer. And I came back to him and said, all your coaches need to do this by next Friday, and it takes 2 hours to do. So you better get it to them. And they, and oh, by the way, where's your EAP? Because we got to have that. I can't come into the gym without an EAP, et cetera, et cetera.
right.
And I think he's just learning the ropes, and he's doing fine. But he and the assistant AD took the morning. So they had an hour of what he calls inspiration. I probably should have gone to a couple of those just to see what he was doing, but he's pretty good that way with um, talking about how to interact with each other, how to be positive about the world and all that. So he was doing that for an hour. They were doing strength and conditioning for an hour, then lunch, then I get him for 2 hours. So I had 8 days of camp, but just 2 hours a day with 6 to 12. So that was manageable.
Sure.
But
Yeah, we
yeah,
did. We had middle school in one, and then high school in the other. So we did have a range from ninth graders to 12th graders. So we were constantly splitting kids up, and we did. First you can do them by age, and then fold them in half. So that you have the youngest with the oldest. And we did them by height, and those are pretty common. Then you start getting into the weird stuff like we did Roy G. Biv based on your shirts. They get organized, and then the blues all have to sort out, and the reds and the black goes to one side, white goes to the other, and fold them in half or count them off. The funniest one was alphabetical by middle names, and they're all looking around because nobody knows anybody's middle name. They got to start asking each other, and kind of sort each other out. So it was fun to watch them. Street numbers, that was another one that we did. Their address numbers. And it's a the community we were in. It's a small town, so there were a lot of people in the 100s or 200s, and a lot of people have in Wisconsin anyway. We have a system where you have a north and a west. So it's N6748, W3247. So there's a bunch of people in the 6,000s and a bunch of people in the 100s. It was, I mean, it's difficult to, when the kids are all different levels, it's difficult to really get into the kind of stuff that they need to work on. They learn some range, of course. You're working on, okay, I gotta back up, and I have to work on with skills that I was doing a couple of years ago, or maybe they have to, older kids have to be in a little bit more of a teaching role. But
yeah,
that's a big adjustment I would like to make for maybe if well, I was invited to do the camp again next year. I think maybe we just need to split out, like a varsity camp or players that are aspiring to be varsity, and then the JV freshmen have to be in a group, and middle school in a group. So it might take a third session. I don't know. We'll
yeah.
have to see.
It's interesting. It was I didn't do a lot of evaluation, but you could tell the girls who had played club primarily by watching them underhand pass. Their
Yeah,
platforms did not move a lot. They got their feet, balanced and set before they passed. And the non-club players were flailing around a little more. They'd cross their feet, that kind of stuff that you can work on a little bit. But some of
yeah,
it's just them figuring out, oh, that works better. You can instruct them and drill them, but if you want them to retain it, they've got to kind of figure it out for themselves. They
right.
did not like. Oh, by the way, I did go to. I changed popovers, as I said I would, to jump spikes. They
Mm,
didn't like them a lot, but I think the younger players didn't like them a lot because they weren't having a lot of success with them.
mm,
But the idea of run, jump, and swing needs to get out there. And the other thing I noticed was that the older players, especially I had a few boys show up. Of course, they're playing on a lower net. They were really good. And actually, some of the girls as well. The older players were really good with some of the younger players. I had one that was a real challenge and good kid, but just very down on himself. And so we just tried to encourage him. And then I noticed a couple of this upper class boys taking him in and put him on their team and encouraging him, and and that was really great to see.
Yeah, yeah, we had one instance of that this week. Um, so that I mean, I've been around the sport for 30 years now, and I remember my wife's first year coaching. My wife coached for about 5 years. Was a fantastic coach. We played each other 5 times, and of course, uh, I'm 0-4-1 against her. So she's the better coach in the household. She had a kid. We walked in the gym, and there's a girl playing pepper with a boy that we knew who had been coming to open gyms. We had never seen the girl, and this girl's just got beautiful hands and great control. And I walked over and said to her, "Hey, where are you from?" Because I'd never seen her before, and she's good. And so I go to school here in Sheboygan Falls, where my wife and I both went to high school, and where my wife was coaching. And I'm like, "Really? You've never been to open gym?" She's like, "Yeah, I was a high school open gym." I'm like, "What? How old are you?" "Well, I'm an eighth grader." Like, oh my gosh. And I
Yeah,
walked over and said to my wife, "I got your starting setter. Unfortunately, it's not going to be until next year."
yeah,
And so, we that kid, and then maybe it was 7 or 8 years later, there was a girl at the high school I was coaching at who was very similar, seventh grader. Like, "Wow, you really got this. You know how to play. Where have you been playing?" "I haven't." Like, really? So this week, uh, a similar but not so similar situation. There's a girl in the eighth grade at the school I was at. I have never seen a better player at that age. She just had, she's about 4'9". I mean, she's tiny, but
yeah.
very strong, looks like a gymnast, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But this kid had, she could read. She never missed the ball. She passed every ball perfectly, and that's with a middle school group. So I said to the our host, like, "I think you ought to take a chance and ask her to go to the varsity camp, ask her to go to the high school camp, see how she
Yeah,
does there, because I think a year from now, this kid's going to get on your floor as a libero, and she's not going to leave it for 4 years."
right.
And so I invited her. It took her about she had to see about 3 balls at the new speed before she made every play. And she's like this kind of kid that would dive into the wall, and it looks like she's going to crash, and then she somehow turns her body and misses it. I mean, it just unbelievable to watch her. I could have just stopped teaching and coaching and watched this girl play for the whole
Yeah.
time. We just, you know 3 times in 30 years I've seen that. So for me, that was probably the big moment of the week. It's just cool to see a kid so talented and coordinated.
For me, it was the last day when this girl was really struggling with her serve. I had worked with her a little bit more on the torque serve, and she nailed a couple. Now she missed a lot, but she had nailed a couple, and to hear the other kids celebrate that and be positive about it was really helpful. And those are the kids you need to encourage, because you don't. I mean, I'm looking at one of the parents was like, well, my, we're, I think I might have told you about this, but yeah, the parents were asking about camp, about lessons and stuff like that. And I said, well, don't bother, just have her play, get her opportunities to play as much as she can, and she'll learn. And they said, oh, okay. I said, look, lessons are fine, but they're so scripted. They aren't really random. They don't really teach the kinds of things. You certainly don't teach you to read very well, because there's no opponent on the other side to watch, typically. Not always, but typically. said, so, there's other things you can do. And and then at the end, I'm like, oh, well, maybe she could come in and play sand with her, do a couple things. Yeah. And I said something because I kind of assumed she might be a high school kid. She's 11. I'm like, relax. Just let her develop. If she's 11 and she
Yeah.
can play, she'll be fine. The biggest thing is, you know, to quote John Kessel and others, just keep telling her you love to see her play. Just keep that reinforcement going and you'll be fine. And, we'll see. So that was kind of fun. So we got some folks who are going to be listening to this. I'll tell you my philosophy or how I approach camps. I am not a detail guy, so I do not have a every 15-minute blocked practice schedule because I'm too accustomed to not knowing who's going to be in the gym for one, and then I'm just naturally reactive to that stuff. Not in a bad way. I'll come in with an idea about what I want to do, but I'll modify that idea depending on what I see. So I don't lock myself in. So I'll put topics up on the whiteboard, but not, from 4:45 to 5, we're going to do this kind of thing. Not to say that's bad. If that's your style, you should coach the way, that fits your style the best, provided it's not abusive or anything like that. But I mean, people learn in all kinds of different ways. And so figuring that out and also figuring out what you're about. So, my gym was pretty random. There was a lot of stuff going on. Parents came in and were watching me put up stuff and looking at me like I was from Mars, when I put the ropes up and all that stuff. And you've got, yours is even more complex than what I put up. But, they're not used to seeing camps run with lots of kids playing, 1v1, 2v2. We played tennis a fair amount. Just said, hey, it's a favorite game of the women's national team. Play it. And they were like, well, what do you mean tennis? I'm like, yeah, you can let the ball bounce and you go over the net on one, but we're doing everything over the net. The net's a rope, but we're going over the net. So that for me, and then letting them figure it out, and that was the toughest thing, was just kind of saying, you know what, I'm not going to do anything for a while and see what happens. And it universally turned out better than I thought it would.
Yeah. And I'm somewhat on the other end of that. I plan out all 4 days down to the 15 minutes, 20 minute increments, and every day is sort of the same. We get in, they have some free time to do as they please. We call that hit till you're happy. I think I got that from Bill Clinton. He would, that's how he was on the first tee. He would hit he would hit golf balls until he
Nice.
was happy with the drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, they come in, start playing around, and then we'll play some warm up games. The first day we taught the half a dozen warm up games, 1v1 and 2v0 and 3v0 and 1v1 plus one, monkey in the middle, all that stuff. And we just kind of ask them, we start polling them, which ones do you like? Do you like 1 versus 1? Do you like the 2 versus 0 versus the 1v1 plus 1? And so we kind of get a feel for it. And then every day, 2 tutoring sessions. And that's a Carl McGowan thing. He, even when he was at BYU, he did every day would have at least he said about a 5-minute tutoring session about some skill that that all the guys knew, but they were going to go over it again and just remind them. It's a little different in a camp situation. We're kind of teaching some skills, so we have 2 of those each day, so 8 tutoring sessions, everything from how to flatten out your platform to, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 reach, or that kind of stuff. Go over the theme of the day, whether it's having fun or being creative or making it easy for a teammate, all of those things. And then, just like you, we're going to play some 1v1, some 2v2, triples and quads, and build on either the theme of the day or the tutoring session, and explore more a range of, range of movement or range of this technique or skill that we're talking about, so that you can figure out where within that range I'm good and where I'm not, and how do I build on the part that I'm not good at. And there were some sideways looks with the nets. We had two courts for 30 kids, and we set up the cross nets with ribbons. And I have one of the USA Volleyball table tennis nets, those
Oh yeah,
70
the
foot long.
four on a rope.
Yeah, it's a 70-foot long table tennis net, and you can so you can drag that across the whole gym. So we set up. I mean, we really could have had 16 courts if we wanted them.
Yeah,
We ended up not using all of the court space, that's a real luxury. And we're probably using 12 courts, 13 courts
yeah,
once in a while when we're playing one versus one workup tournament.
yeah,
Trying to get to the champions court. There were probably, well, there were, I guess, 15. If we had 30 kids out there, we had 15 courts going. So um, yeah, it's a lot of that, and just working on the control, and it's almost more the philosophy of the game. Where do we want to put the ball so that it's easier for a teammate? Um, how
yeah.
do we how do we facilitate building an offense? How do we get the ball into the other court and attack? A lot of that.
Yeah, I think there's as I was going through it, yeah, we had I think at max I could put up about 14 courts, and not using the main net because it's kind of the yeah, I had to do it non-destructively, so I couldn't put a lag bolt in the wall or anything like that. So I had to find a way to rig it temporarily, and came up with a way to do it, but it was also parallel to the main net. So technically, we did have at one point we had some of the older kids playing short court on the main net, while other kids play. In fact, what we did is we rotated people through playing short court. So I would take,
Oh, yeah.
we were doing 4-on-4 in the mini courts, and I would take the 4-on-4 teams and bring them over and have them play some short court, and then put them back on their courts and bring another group in and let them play short court because they like stuff like that. It's kind of interesting to see that the kids seem to have a good time. We'll find out. I'm sure I'm going to get feedback, but at the end of the day, a lot of touches, a lot of we really only had about maybe 8 or 9 high school girls. So I'm hoping a lot more show up for open gym and tryouts, because tryouts are a week from tomorrow. I already have a conflict the second day of practice where I can't be there, and I'm it right now. So we won't have practice the second day. But, you know, that's got to get a little pressure on myself and our AD to kind of get things straightened away. And he's working hard on it. So we'll get there.
If
So.
if you have 14 courts going, how how did you find 14 staff members? I mean, doesn't it take 14 coaches if you have 14
Yeah, there
courts?
you
You
go.
can't you
You
can't
need
leave one
less than
supervisor.
one. You need less than one. I mean, I'm sure parents were like, "What is he doing? He's just walking around the gym watching." And I'm like, "Yep." Every now and then I'll pick up on something, but they're figuring it out. If they're some of them are flailing at the ball and a little off balance, and some of them are looking great. And I even told one of the parents, I said, "I can make it look pretty, but they're not going to learn the game. They're gonna make that drill look good." So and the boys were, I did try to drive through a few points. One was, we're not playing close to the net.
Yeah.
Walking through there, the tallest girl I had in the gym was maybe 5'9", 5'10". Most of them were in the 5'6" to 5'8" range, some with some really good swings. But I'm like, look, you start hitting that ball within 1.5 feet against some of the people we're going to play, and you're just going to watch it hit the floor. You're going to have to get really creative with your swinging, and And when I told them I want the ball past 5 feet off the net, they looked at me like, what? I'm like, nope. If we're 5 feet off and if we set it, 3 to 5 feet off, if we make a mistake, we're probably still going to be on our side. And that's where we want to be. There's nothing more fun than watching the other team hammer an overpass.
we when we organized, the largest number of teams I think we had to make was 8. So we organized one day by 8 teams, and it was one of the crazy ones. I think it was by middle names. So you just count them off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just go down the line. And I'm not paying attention at all to who's on what team. I'm just giving them a number. We get a team who is made up of 4 liberos. I don't think the tallest kid on the team was 5'1". I mean, they're all just munchkins, and everybody's just laughing. Like, you got to break this team up. I'm like, no, they got to figure out how to play
Yeah.
with this. They got to use it to their advantage, and they actually played pretty well. They were not the lowest scoring team of the 8. Um, they they figured out some ways for them that they could maybe not score, but they weren't scoring by conventional means, but they
Right.
could
Right.
prevent the other team from scoring long enough
Yep.
to
Get a
to
mistake.
let the other team, throw up on their own shoes. So it was
Yeah.
pretty
We,
neat.
we did do a relay race, which was kind of fun. And
Hmm.
it was just a classic end to end pass back and forth with your partner, and watch and just explaining it to them and then letting them figure it out. Figure out, okay, wait a minute, if we put all the strong kids with other strong kids, what's going to happen when the kids who are just learning have to go slowly along. So and
Mhm.
it was pretty close, and I like you're like, oh guys, this is going to work. Like, who cares? You just let it go and see where it takes you, and some good things can happen. And it was just a diversion, really, because it's not something that's super it's not something that Mike Hewlett would have thrown into a practice at club level, but we needed a little bit of fun, and I need to work a little bit more to get some more of those kinds of games into my repertoire, to make it fun. And scoring. I gave him a scoring one where you had to run, jump, and swing for the kill to score. So I'm like, you might score 3 points because none of you are jumping. Even the high school kids were hitting down balls. Like, no,
Right.
you got to jump. And you get that mentality going, and it's going to pay off down the road. It wouldn't have paid off this week, but that's how you get it started.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing about camp that I've noticed. I mean, I've been to all the major, I don't want to say major, but the big name camps. Um, I've been to a whole bunch of college camps, um, and they're expensive. They're getting $300-400 a week, uh, and I think, I mean, I, most of the time when I'm in those gyms, gosh, 95% of the time I'm in those gyms, like, this is a money grab. They're taking the money, and some of the stuff that they're preaching isn't what they're teaching. They're two different messages. So for me, I think a lot of those, it kind of bothers me a little bit, and it's probably the only reason that I run kid camps. My preference is to work with coaches and help coaches get better. And I'll run a couple of these kid camps every year if the coaches are willing to be there. If it's usually a school that contacts me, and I'll say, well, yeah, I'll do this, but you guys got to attend as coaches and pay attention to what we're doing here and why we're doing things, because I don't want that situation like you've been describing where we make everything look really good and they don't retain any of it. The kids that I was working with this week, I'm not even sure if they realized that they got better. It's hard to tell if you're getting better in, in ecological dynamics or in the play the game sort of style that you and I prefer. You can't feel that you're getting better every day. Where in that camp setting, you can feel it, but then you don't retain it. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's a tough balance, you know.
well, it's been interesting to watch my boys, and on Sundays there's an adult open gym essentially at one of the rec centers nearby, and I've been going, not going today because either I think I just have a cold, but I'm not up to it today. So body's going to rest, and I got a little bit of homework to do for my real job. But a few of my guys have been showing up, and it's been great for them because they are playing at a much higher level than they typically see. They've got to really get up there and block. They've got to really, be smart with their attacks, and you can really see the improvement. And it's nice for them to do that. I know a few of them have been playing sand, and you can tell because you see beach digs and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, that's the kind of play, that kind of random, walk onto a court. We count off by six. There's six teams, three on the court. Kind of the whole social, bond with the next guy. Learn, walk on the court and go, okay, here's what I can cover. What can you cover? I'll get a guy when I get on the court. They usually go, okay, I can take a little more space if because I'm a little slower than I used to be. And they always play me at middle, which is hilarious because I'm like, I am not blocking anything. I may get a hand on a few balls, but I'm not blocking anything with my vertical anymore. But it's like, well, he's 6'1", he can play middle. I'm like, yeah, well,
The
sort
curse of
of.
old age.
Yeah. The other side of it is that I do get to make some interesting shots because I'm going over whatever I see in front of me. I'm going over it. I don't care if I got a
Yeah.
tip or roll or whatever. I got to go over it. So yeah, but that's in fact. What's the break point for masters when they lower the net? Do you know what age group that?
55.
50. Oh God, I got
Yeah,
that. I got
55.
that nailed. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm approaching it.
well,
And I kept thinking, man, this is going to be easy when they lower the net. I'm like, wow,
but the guys are
that
still
my
good.
my vertical's going down a lot faster than
Yeah,
that net's coming
yeah.
down.
Yeah. Well, I found, because I had not played for a long time, and I came back and started playing just because somebody asked me to. And, the skills are coming back. I make shots that people kind of go, really? I had a back set my back set was really, I used to be pretty good at that. And I was just, not getting it done. And I just happened to have one the other day. I just got up and the guy was like, whoa, where did that come from? I'm like, that you get my one for today. He says, well, thanks.
Uh,
I appreciate that. So
you know,
let's
the
talk
funny
a
thing
little
about
bit. Yeah, go ahead.
the funny thing about these camps and just coaching youth in general, when adults go and play, even brand new adults, they go and play. There aren't, they don't have camps for adults, and you don't do drills with adults. You go and play the game and you tough it out, and it doesn't take long before you're playing all right. I can't figure out for the life of me why we do all these crazy drills with kids. What's the difference between how you teach a kid and how you teach an adult? A matter of
Yeah.
fact, I know a guy. I played with a guy who was very, very soft spoken. You know, almost not quite meek, but he was just he's a quiet dude. But he could just absolutely fly. I mean, he had a 40-inch vertical. I put him on the jump monitor, and he was going over 40 inches all the time, and have just a violent arm swing. Just ravaging people. I asked him where he played, and he played at a local university club. Didn't play, any Division 3 or one or two. And he was a setter in college, All American a couple of times as a setter. And I said, when did you get really good at hitting? Because now he's going to things like the mother load and the boat ride. We'll pack a boat ride and Potsdam, and they're winning stuff. And he said, It's probably 2 or 3 years after college. He said I got really good. So, well, what changed about your training? What's different about what you were doing in college and what you're doing? What are you doing now? How do you get better? He's like, well, I play 3, 4 times a week. Like, oh yeah.
That'll do it.
And I just looked at him, and he was looking at me, and he like, oh yeah, I see
You
what you're
know,
saying.
happened with my son. He was 6'2", left-handed setter, and in high school they didn't want him to set. So they had him play right side till a 6'5" basketball player blocked better than him, and so he sat the bench for a while. Now he's
Yeah,
playing. He's in his mid-30s and he's playing rec ball, and he's the guy. And he's good. He can really hit now, but he just never really it never clicked for him to the level it needed to when he was playing in
right.
high school. And it's like, you don't know. I didn't, well, that's, I started playing volleyball as a senior in college, and I was terrible. Oh God. I mean, and look, I never got past men's double B, just athletically. I'm not that level of ball player, but I love the game. Just had a lot of fun with it. And then somebody said, you should coach. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And so I started to figure it out. And I think, when parents come in and say, well, wait a minute, the kids come in, coach, when you were in college, what did you do? I said, when I was in college, if you hit the net, it was the other team's point. The block was a hit, and you couldn't take the first ball overhand. So other than that, it wasn't, it's the same game. Oh, and we were playing side out scoring. So, it was a little different. And they kind of go, oh, and I said, and I didn't play in college. Oh, really? And I was like, the colleges didn't have programs. And if they had programs, I wouldn't have been in them. But at the end of the day, some of the best coaches are people who study the game and who are good teachers.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, there's just endless examples of players that get so much better once they're out of school. Once they get out of that training regime. A friend of mine played at Long Beach State. He moved here to from California, Southern California, to Wisconsin. I don't know why in the heck he would do that, but
There you go.
uh, they had their kids there. His daughter was an okay player. She's maybe 5'9", 5'10", and I think she was maybe second team all conference in an okay conference, not a great one. And she moved back to Southern California. And it wasn't but maybe 3, 4 years later she'd gotten her AAA rating, which is what you need to be able to register for the highest level of events. And again, she she was not training with anyone. She was going to the beach and playing with the best people that she could find on the beach,
Yeah.
and just got better and better and better.
Well,
I don't
I
know.
try to teach the boys about how you do that, how you go to a new gym and you get to know
Yeah,
people. Like in our gym, the Sunday gym that the kids are playing on with the adults, it's clear. You go out and they have a structured, they count off. They see how many people they have, decide how many teams they want, and count off and do all that. And they're, I'm like, look, I remember when I was first playing. So got out of graduate school, went to work in New York, and started going to Central Park to play. Drove in from New Jersey and played. And you had to work your way up. There were 3 nets, and you had to work your way up. And I got to the 1 net eventually, but I got to the 1 net as kind of a scrub on the 1 net. But it was kind of like, you had to pay your dues on the number 3 net until somebody said, hey, why don't you come up and play on 2? And when they go there and you go, okay, here's how you play 5. Well, we can't play 5. I'm like, of course you can play 5. And here's how, here's 4 different ways you can play 5s. And here's how most people play 4s. So I try to do that in my program in case they go to a gym and they're playing 4s. Um, you
right.
know, so I'm trying to make it a life sport if I can. I want to talk a little bit about, for people who are, kind of tuned in here. First of all, coach the way you coach. Um, but if you're looking to, we're going to go through a few photos of what we put together, or what I put together, and what BJ put together in terms of gym.
Yeah, yeah, do that.
And again, many of you who are listening on the podcast won't see this. We'll try to describe it. And if you want to go back, we're about We're probably about 45 minutes into so you can go look it out. I'll see if I can bookmark it on the video for you so you don't have to watch the whole thing if that's not your thing. But let me kind of hop in here. So this is my gym, and you can see the kids are playing. It doesn't show it very well, but and I'll show it with a little bit different view in a minute. But there's a rope stretched from the top of the bleachers, actually the second rung of the bleachers because it's girls' height or women's height. And it's stretched across to some of the MacGyvered stuff that mini volley. By the way, if you're looking to do this and you've never done it before, get the book, the PDF of mini volley from USA Volleyball. It's a great resource and can give you a lot of ideas about how you might do this. So let me see if I can get this to advance. All right. So there's what I did here. Just in case you want to do this, I bought 100 feet of marine rope. And a marine rope has and I don't think I depicted it here very well, but it has a metal anchor, where you can attach an anchor on the other end of it. It's just a loop, but it's nice because then I can take a steel, you can kind of see it here, a little steel hook, an S hook, and put the S hook on it, and then just reach over and hang it on to the back of the bleacher. Now, our bleachers happen to be tall enough to do this. If you have short bleachers, it might not work for you. But in my case, that was kind of my MacGyver for it. At the other side of the gym, what I did was BJ and others gave me a lot of guidance on this, and I kind of went with what I thought would work. And then when I got into the gym, and it what didn't look like it was going to work, but it did. And the reason it didn't look like it was going to work is that U joint up at the top is not big enough to go around some of the hardware for the backboard there. But it turns out on the side here, it did work, and that worked out really well. So at the bottom of this, at the proper height, I drilled holes for an eye bolt and just put an eye bolt in, and we can move it and change heights. I used a 10-foot length because that's what you can buy at Home Depot, and I cut it to 7. If I was going to do it again, I just cut a little bit of the end off and leave it long, because if you did that, you probably could use the bottom of it for sitting courts. But I didn't do that. And at 7 feet, you're about 5 feet off the ground or so, and that doesn't work well for sitting. So, and this
So
is
this
the
is
other one.
just
Yeah.
for people listening. It's a piece of PVC
Yes.
built into a U shape, and the U hangs over the top of a backboard, and then the long piece of the pipe is available to drill holes in or put a hook into or something so that you can hook the other side of the net onto it.
Yeah, and I found the size. Surprisingly, there weren't a lot of U pieces. So this is like 2 pieces of PVC, one 10-foot PVC pipe, and one U joint, and cut a little bit off the PVC and shoved it on the other side for a little bit of stability. I didn't glue it. I used a wing nut and bolt drilled through. Just because it seemed to make more sense to me. But you could certainly glue it, and it probably would do just fine. But that's kind of up to you. And those on the podcast can't see it, but I took a little piece of the remaining pipe and shoved it on the other side so that it wouldn't kind of flip off of the backboard. In my case, I couldn't hook it to the backboard. I had to hook it to the hardware of the backboard, which actually worked out very well for me. But every backboard setup is going to be different, so you kind of have to MacGyver it a little bit. So this is what the ropes look like. So for those who are not watching, basically you string the rope across. It's about women's height, probably a little saggy in the middle. Put a slip knot in it, and tighten it as best you can. And I cut up pool noodles into about 6 or 7 pieces, and use those to mark off where the court boundaries are along the rope. So we could get up to 7 courts, mini courts, for people to play over. And usually with 7, I would have them playing 1-on-1. Typically, for the number of kids I had, we played 4 courts, 2-on-2, maybe 3 courts, 3-on-3 kind of thing across the gym. your gym's going to be different, and you might do it lengthwise. We did it widthwise because of the setup in the gym. You might ask, why don't we have more nets available? We have some problems with the alignment of the holes for the volleyball poles in our 2-court setup. We have a 2-court lengthwise and 1-court widthwise net setup. So the main net is available, but the other two are not, because we had some floor warpage, and so those, until that gets fixed, I don't have those courts. So we really needed this when I knew I was going to have 30 plus kids. And here's the other rope again. I'm just going to illustrate this for folks on. And then this is BJ's setup. So BJ, why don't you walk us through this a little bit, and describe it for folks?
Yeah, we had 2 courts available for as many as 32 kids. So 16 on a court is an awful lot. You can play, obviously, you can play 4 courts of speed, which would be 8 per. If you split the 2 main courts into 2 skinny courts, or into 4 skinny courts, you could. But you can't play speed for 2 hours a day. They're going to get bored with it. So we set up courts going perpendicular to the 2 main, one with a ribbon and one with the USAV. They have a ping pong or a table tennis net that's 70 feet long. And we set up those courts perpendicular to the 2 main courts, so we could do as many as 16 courts. We did the same thing as Steve, cut up little tiny pieces of pool noodles to mark off where the antennas would be. And in this gym, it was really nice. They have a lot of lines on the court, so it was easy for players to say, okay, we're playing on these lines, or we're playing the badminton lines, or playing the whatever, sort of dividers. They could find all kinds of different things. And then our setup was on the sides, was also with the bleachers. And I just use here, Steve, I don't know if you can zoom in on this, but we use a bungee cord.
Yeah, let me
just cut a bungee cord in half.
There you go.
Yeah. So cut a bungee cord in half, so it's got the hook on one side, and then just put one of these guys, tied it into the other side, and that all hooks up with the bleachers, so that we could connect the ribbons to it and disconnect them, so that when we did go full court, we just easily disconnect, wind up the ribbon, and throw it off to the side and go and play. It was good. It was a neat way, particularly with the younger kids. The older kids want to play bigger courts, so we do end up playing a lot more either 4-on-4 or speed game on skinny courts, because that's just what they want to do. They need a little bit more distance, and they want to be hitting at a full length of court, so that makes a lot of sense. But with the younger kids,
it's a long story, but they had their 2 hours of play right after us. And so what I would do is I would pull the slip knots out, take the ropes down, and play 15 to 30 minutes of speedball. And the kids really liked it. Even with the young kids and the old kids mixed, 6 to 12, they were having fun playing. Every day they were like, can we play speedball? Can we play speedball? So that's a good thing, because that's a great way to learn the game, for lack of anything better. Here is kind of a tour. I'll just show it real quickly. Let me get to sorry, my screen right now is covered with more stuff. So different age groups, they organize themselves with people they know, and they kind of played around. Most of them haven't played before, or very little.
That's a pretty tall kid right there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he had a couple of high school kids at the very end there, and then these guys were.
Yeah.
It was great that those two got together, because those two struggled, but they found each other, which was great. They figured it out. So, and then we've got guys got serve.
It's good to see the boys playing.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of what we did. And then the other thing I thought of, because we had these like uh, crowd control these things. So I mean, the girl in white is sitting right next to one. So these poles were sitting around, and I had ribbon. So I basically took the ribbon I had and just stretched it. I had 6 of them, so I had 3 sitting courts, and that was plenty for the kids to play. And it cleaned up the floor too, which is always a good thing. So they had a lot of fun with this, and it wasn't pretty, but they got to play a little bit, and there you go. So it really can be fun to do. So let's see. Neil's got something for us. Let me look here.
Yeah, it's good to see Neil.
I've had
Um,
trouble. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, he's talking about the net sagging. I agree. Um, that can be a problem when you go uh, when you set up an alternate net perpendicular to the main net. If you leave the main net up, that acts as a standard in the middle, so it keeps
right.
it a little higher. Um, so that can help. The other thing is if you use really light materials like the ribbon, just a standard ribbon, 2-inch ribbon that you can buy at Costco or a local fabric store. If it's really light material, you can get that. You can pull that pretty tight, and that doesn't sag too badly. The the pool noodles, if you cut them small enough, they don't add too much weight, so that
Yeah.
helps as well. But those are about the best ways that I have to keep
Well,
that
what I
sag
found,
from.
and again, it's going to be when you MacGyver it. I got up and I'm putting these things up and trying to get it tight. Getting that slip knot, you always have a little bit of slippage, even a couple inches makes it sag a little bit. And then two things came up. One is I realized I could actually tighten that with the PVC pipe actually sticking forward a little bit of it, and then at the end push it back behind the backboard and tighten it that way. But the one that we didn't use, but it definitely came up. The girls were helping put the baskets up, and they turned the knobs for the wrong basket. So all of a sudden the baskets started, with the ropes, those baskets started coming up, and it got loose. And I'm just sitting there going, that wouldn't be a bad way to tighten them. and the girls the next day were
Right.
like, Coach, do you want to put those up so we can tighten them by dropping the baskets down? I'm like, no, I think I'll go with what we've got. But that actually would have worked.
Yeah.
So let's see. He ended up using our own netting and cutting that net band. Okay. I got to picture this.
Yeah, let me read it.
Oh, put those glasses
It
on,
says
man.
he ended up using our own netting and cutting the net band to fill the gap between the innermost standards, making two skinny and one net band and two skinny. So so that way he's going with two courts and a band in between them,
I got you. I got you.
which makes
Yeah,
sense. So you can essentially it's 5 skinny courts.
especially if you've got some gap. Our gym is really large enough to really accommodate 3 courts easily. And
Oof.
because it's rented and the way they set it up, they've got it's not only set up for 2 courts, but the distance between the 2 courts sideways is only about 2 feet, which is just like awful. But it is what it is. It's just one of those things where you
Yeah.
go, and there's no net in between, so you're kind of stuck with, actually, I might take John's suggestion and get some deer netting and rig up something with across the middle there. But I'm going to need to get something to hook it to on the non bleacher side of the wall because there's no basket there. So, but anyway, that's a minor thing. Hopefully, I get my 2 courts back. I'll be happy to get that. So
Yeah, if you knew somebody that could sew, you could get some ribbon and get some fishnet, which would be super light, and hang that. And then
yeah,
even if it wasn't a full 3.5 feet wide. Just make it a foot wide, and hang a ribbon with some fish netting on it. It would look like a giant table tennis net.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think I would hang it with a little bit of gap underneath it just because I don't want kids getting their feet in there.
yeah, I agree.
I'm willing to risk a ball going, sneaking under, but for the most part, they're going to stop there or at least be slowed down
Yeah.
there. But
Oh, you mean as court dividers? Yeah, yeah,
yes,
I agree.
yes, yeah. But
I agree.
yeah, so I mean, there's a lot you can do, and we were able to have a pretty fun experience on the fly. Man, this was like, it's like I tapped into everybody I know. Like, what can I do? And obviously the mini volley book will give you lots of ideas for sure. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's the biggest thing about these camps. I think kids got to come in. You want to teach them some things. Our one of my biggest things is to teach them how to play when there isn't a net. Um, can you go and make use of your time with just two or three or four friends? If you do or don't have a court, uh, because I really believe that's where you get better is when
Yeah,
you're out playing. Not, we're very self-important as coaches. We think we need to be there in order for them to get better. It's really the players that make them better. Even in big club situations, um, it's the kids get better by being around other kids and playing against other kids. That's where
yeah,
the majority of their improvement happens. So I think, I mean, those are the biggest messages of the week. And if you can get them to just, they're walking out of the gym and they still want more,
right.
that's another reason to keep it, to keep your time frame short. The 2 hours flies by, and the kids, some of the kids are staying after, and they want to play more, and some of the other kids are showing up early for the second session because they want to play more. They just want to play, so why not let them play? Because that's where they're
Yeah,
going to get better.
absolutely.
That's if I see that, I'm calling camp a success.
No, I agree. Well, look, we've had a fun hour. We're probably going to be off
Yeah,
next week, and maybe the week after. You're going to Canada.
2 weeks. Yeah, I can't be here for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be catching fish in Canada.
Nice, nice. I had a friend who used to do that. I have never had the pleasure. Are the mosquitoes as bad as they say?
No,
Okay, well that's
no.
good. It's
You
kind
got
of
to.
late
I
in the
mean, it
summer.
depends where you are. You can get to places where black flies are really bad or mosquitoes are
Yeah.
really bad. I mean, they make chemicals for that. You can take care of it.
Here's a question from Neil, and that's a great one.
Oh yeah.
Um, well, first of all, I'm not exactly sure that hitting is the most fun. If you look at, I mean, I think we say that a lot. I didn't experience that this last couple weeks. Now, again, I had a lot of inexperienced players, but they weren't as enamored with the hitting part, and we let them hit a fair amount. The one thing I did tell the high school kids who I'll be starting to coach in another week, I said, look, you're not going to see hitting lines in my gym very much, if at all. We don't do that. We do full transition. We make it less game like as possible. And I showed them what we would do. But when I had self-tossed attacking, it wasn't particularly popular. But I do think it's a great way to learn. And the one thing I didn't get a chance to do that I can't remember, PJ, maybe it was you, but somebody I talked to in the last week or two said tossing it making a bad toss to like if I'm a right-hander too far to the left, so I have to do my approach around the ball to get
Mm.
up and attack it. That would be a little more advanced skill, but the save the best for last. I don't know. I don't kind of go, oh, we're going to pass and now we're going to set and now we're going to. I kind of don't do that. I think the best for last, quite frankly, is probably something like speedball or maybe kings or queens, depending on who you've got, and all of that stuff. Some competitive games towards the end, but that doesn't mean you can't hit to start things off or early in the session. I don't know what you think, BJ.
I think you got to get them hooked. Uh, it sounds dangerously close to being a drug dealer, but you know, I would hit right away because I think they do want to do that. And the self toss, if you're doing a self toss and hit over, it's doing some of both. It's learning how to hit, it's learning how to jump serve. I think we hold some of these skills back from kids. Like I had a lot of kids this week saying, "I'm only a seventh grader. I don't know how to jump serve." I'm like, well, that last drill that you were doing, what were you doing? You're tossing the ball, running and jumping and hitting. What's different? What's different between that and a jump serve? So you are jump serving already, and they're just astonished. Like, I'm jump serving. So that just getting them excited to play
Yeah.
is a big deal. And again, if you play a lot and and hitting is at the end of it, so you want to, if your bump set hit, then they're motivated to pass and set, uh, as opposed to they're standing in a line and somebody underhand tosses a ball and you pass it and you rotate out, and then I mean, how boring is that? I would hate to do that.
Yeah.
It would just be awful as a player to stand in line and every 8 balls you get one. Um,
Well, honestly, that's when we were playing speedball. That was what it was kind of like. But they were okay with it at the end because it was still playing competitive, and they wanted to get out there and whatever. But I wish I had two
yeah.
courts for that because then we could have had a much more
Oh, sure.
speedball like
Because
thing.
there's too
But
many teams. There's too
yeah,
many teams standing in line. You're saying, yeah,
yeah, I had 32 people on one court doing speedball threes or fours.
yeah,
But it worked out fine. It was kind of a decompress at the end. Plus, they got to play, and the kids liked it. Would be better to have 16 on a court and two courts
yeah.
and split up by skill level or ability level.
Two
But
skinny courts. Two skinny
yeah,
courts playing 4-on-4.
yeah, that would have been a little rough, especially with the
That's a
young
little
kids.
tight.
There would have been balls
Yeah,
flying all over the place.
it's
But
a little
maybe
tight.
I'll keep an open mind. So fair
Yeah,
enough.
we played a lot of speedball, or not just even speedball, but we played that a lot on the alternate nets. Um,
Yeah,
just mostly doubles, but then you can get 8 kids
yeah,
going.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. That
but
works
yeah, that
well.
is. I mean, small. A lot of people on one court is always a difficulty. I wrote a paper about it a few years ago, with 30 or 40 suggestions on what do you do when you only have one court and you got 40 kids. Um, and we've probably talked over most of the ideas. You turn it sideways. You do it in groups where you cut a third of them out and they go and play sitting out in the hallway while
Yeah.
2/3 of them are on the court, and then you rotate around, that kind of stuff. We did a little bit of that this week too.
Yeah. Now, if John was
It's
in the
hard.
gym, he would have had 5 things we could have done that I didn't do. But you learn every
Yeah,
time you do it.
yeah, yeah. That's true. I can't remember what I called it. Oh, I no, I do remember the half court blues. When you only have a half court, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, yes, especially if you're in a club situation and your club is kind of old school, and they say, okay, you have this half of the gym, and you're going to do drills on your half of the
right?
net. You never get the ball over the net. One of the first things I tell them is we play over the net. And when I see kids pounding the ball, warming up, pounding the ball into the floor, to warm up their shoulder, I'm like, aim high, aim high. And they look at me like I'm from Mars. I'm like, nope, nope, you don't do that. We don't aim at the floor when we play. So let's not aim in the floor aim at the floor when we're warming up. Let's not do that. You know?
I walked into the gym for the first day. A second session was the varsity kids, and they're running laps. I said, "Are you guys doing this on purpose? What's going on?"
Yeah,
Like, "Oh, we always run laps to get warm." Like, okay, well,
yeah. Well, there's an
why don't you get the
opportunity there.
volleyballs out?
Yeah, awesome. Well, look, we've gone a
Yeah,
little over today, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm playing with some new technology, so I'd say about 80% of it worked today. And that's pretty good for me. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. If I find somebody who wants to come on, or if I may draft a guest host. But right now, to be honest with you, I'm probably going to be really busy just getting my feet under me with the new program
Yeah.
and hiring some coaches. So if you're in the Phoenix area and you're a coach and you're not doing anything this fall and you are interested in doing middle school from 3:30 to 5 most days, I don't know what time they play their matches yet. And if you're interested in high school coaching, I do have one opening, and I'm going to be talking to some people. I've been trying to line up a few folks, but I have no idea yet what the stipend's going to be, but I will know soon. So give me a contact, and it's Steve Hammond, the number 1 at mac.com if you're interested. And that's it. I'm going to hit the button and take us out of here.